everybody, it's GM Lee with the next video covering the Chase Rules Part 2, using the Core Rules Book for Savage Worlds Adventure Edition, or SWADE for short. In the first video, we went into a lot of detail around the basic chase rules. With this video, I'm going to try and not repeat a lot of that information. Instead, we're going to focus on the rules you encounter in different adventuring environments. We'll also spend time on combat in each scenario. First, we'll look at a foot chase in a crowded marketplace between the city guard and a thieving cutpurse on the run. Next, we'll move into outer space with an encounter between a smuggler's freighter and a planetary security forces patrol ship. Then we move planet-side for a marine battle between two ships where movement becomes an initial important strategic priority. Finally, it's time to get gritty with a post-apocalyptic race for survival on the broken roads of tomorrow. This is an ambitious video with lots of changes to set pieces and creative effort behind the scenes. To keep it only as long as necessary, in each case we'll dive into the action right away. So, let's get started. The streets of the free city of Haven were ideal hunting grounds for Kira the cutpurse. Unfortunately, after a critical failure snatching a purse from a merchant's belt, Kira's day is about to go from just one more to, excuse me, as she'll need to dodge the crowds of city folk in her way. For all my video examples, I use the Foundry Virtual Tabletop, the same gaming environment I use for my Savage Worlds games. And the chase cards are already laid out in a straight line. Luckily, Kira is built for a chase. She has an excellent athletics roll for climbing and jumping, and also has the edge free runner. She is expertly skilled at running, jumping, swinging, scampering up walls and over obstacles. As long as there is something for her to get traction with, she can move at full speed with no issues. Kira also adds +2 to her athletics roll when climbing and in foot chases. Kira is also an expert acrobat. Unfortunately, her thieving skills aren't quite there yet. But she's working on it. Picking pockets pays a lot more than the circus. Kira is also fleet-footed, so that adds +2 to her pace, which doesn't impact chase. However, as the fastest person involved, she does add +1 to her maneuvering roll to change position. The merchant's shout led to the city watch sounding their whistle. And just like that, the chase is on. Action cards are drawn for initiative. Kira draws a 2 of spades, and the city watch, led by a watch captain, draws a king of diamonds. They will all act on the same initiative card, although their actual actions will be handled individually. On their turn, the watch has to follow the law, which is to ask Kira to do the right thing and give up. "Drop the staff, lass, and come with us. You're under arrest," says the watch captain. "Yeah, we don't want to be hurting you, little lady," says another, while the third simply lifts his crossbow and grins wickedly. Essentially, the watch have chosen to hold their actions. Kira decides she has better things to do with her day, gives a mock salute in return, and turns away on the run. She decides to change position as a free action and evade as an action, just in case the man with the crossbow decides to shoot. Her athletics roll is a 7, and she can move 1 chase card. The man armed with the crossbow does indeed decide to shoot. This isn't a target of opportunity, as Kira was not in a square immediately adjacent to him. This is because he held his action. Now, it's going to be a tough shot. Kira is already at -4 to evade, and there's one more complication. Taking aim in a concrete jungle isn't easy, Blasting away in a crowded area is a recipe for trouble with all those buildings, cars or horses, and jittery pedestrians in the way, so your shots aren't going to be as accurate. Firing a ranged weapon in a crowd gives you a -2 penalty to your attack roll. That's on top of any other ranged penalties you might face. Remember, in a bustling city, stray bullets can find more than just your intended target. He raises his crossbow, steadies it as best as he can, but at a -6, it's no surprise that he misses. With his held action, the watch captain goes next and decides to evade as an action. He did see the throwing knives in Kira's bandolier. Then change position as a free action to catch up with her. But he fails his athletic roll, as does the other watchguard. It's the next turn and time again to pull action cards for initiative. The City Watch pull a 10 of hearts while Kira gets an 8 of clubs. Kira's starting to think this just isn't her day. You'll remember we talked about complications in our last video. With a city chase, there's one big difference. Complications, besides jokers, have a minimum penalty of -2. Whether you're sprinting on foot, galloping on horseback, or careening through the streets in a car, the city throws its own set of challenges your way. Forget traffic lights, it's a red light running free-for-all. Pedestrians scatter like startled pigeons, and blocked streets can force a last-minute detour. But before we can get to Kira's complication, the City Watch goes first. The watch captain makes his athletics roll and moves up beside Kira, and half-heartedly swings his longsword at her. He naively hoped she would actually give up. Maybe his regret pulled the attack because he misses. One of the City Watch makes his athletics roll with a massive raise, but he chooses to move only one action card since he needs to attack Kira. He makes the attempt, but fails even with the +1 gang-up bonus he gets. The last man fails his athletics roll and goes nowhere, but that's fine. He can focus entirely on reloading his crossbow. It's Kira's turn, and normally the GM would ask the player to make a maneuvering roll right away for the complication. But the GM can also use complications to trigger special conditions or obstacles during the encounter, and the GM has indeed placed a few surprises along the chase path for Kira. He asks the player what they'd like to normally do here. Kira is well aware of the crossbow bolt that just missed her earlier, and now she's got swords all around her. Kira can hold her own in a fight, but 3 City Watch and chainmail with swords and crossbows? That's a little much for her liking. So Kira is going to continue to change position as a free action and evade as her action. For now, Kira is going to ignore the complication and the Spades chase card, since the GM says to make her athletics maneuvering roll at +2 for free runner to change position. She rolls an 11, so that's a raise, and gets to move forward 2 chase cards. And that's when the GM surprises her. 2 farmers just happen to be backing out a large hay cart onto the street, right in Kira's path. The GM asks Kira to make her complication roll at a -2 since it's in the city, and asks her what she'd like to do. It's time for Kira to surprise the GM right back. She's an acrobat and armed with a quarterstaff. She's not planning to go around the cart. Kira wants to go over it. She'll run straight at the cart, plant her quarterstaff right where the wooden wheel meets the stone street, and pole vault over, landing on the other side and then hopefully continuing on to the next chase cart. First, though, she's got to make the roll, but she's not worried. Even at -2 for the complication, she has free runner for +2, so they cancel out. And if she fails, she can use the free reroll that she gets with acrobatics. And just as Kira's luck is holding out today, she fails the roll. She uses her free reroll and just makes it. She's now over the wagon in midair, and that's when the GM comes up with his second surprise. The GM reveals that on the other side of the cart are 3 more City Watch. Kira has an idea. She tells the GM that she'd like to change her plans. If she can spend a penny, she'd like to end up on the roof. GM loves this idea, but decides that will burn the extra chase card Kira could have traveled. Once the chase moves to the rooftops in a city, the results for critical failures change, and this includes any failed complications that end up as critical failures. First, roll a d6. On a 1 to 2, you lose your turn. On a 3 to 4, you suffer 1 fatigue point. And on a 5 to 6, you fall right off the edge. You must make an immediate athletics roll as a free action. Success means you can grab onto something, a railing, gutter, ledge, or what have you. Then you can make a strength roll to pull yourself up. If you fail the strength roll, you're still hanging on, but for now you're stuck right where you are. Now, failing that athletics roll? Off you go. If it's a low roof, I'd have the character fall to the ground and take damage. A really high roof of multiple stories? Well, maybe you get hung up on a flagpole or manage to grab onto a window cleaner's platform. Either way, you're not only stuck, you're going to need some help. And a critical failure? Well, let's not go there. For Kira, she's up on the store roof, surrounded by members of Haven's City Watch. Kira's in a lot of trouble, but I wouldn't worry. The Free City of Haven also has a large thieves guild. And Kira, she has a lot of friends. Meanwhile, a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, someone really doesn't like paying taxes. On cargo, that is. And when the smugglers try to skirt orbital platforms and traffic beacons, it's up to the planetary security forces to bring the freighter to heel. Let's ditch the straight line chase and take things to a whole new dimension, literally, for space or aerial chases. You can create any shape of grid for a battlefield that allows for a more dynamic movement and flanking maneuvers. Vehicles will move in right angles though, no diagonals allowed. This keeps things simple while still offering various tactical options. With a grid, weapon arcs and vehicle facings are where things get really exciting. Consider the real-world limitations of your vehicles. A spaceship with forward-mounted lasers can't fire on targets directly behind it. Use common sense to determine which squares fall within a vehicle's firing arc based on its current facing. This system adds a layer of strategy, as players need to consider not just movement, but also positioning to line up their attacks effectively. We'll use a grid size of 4 rows of 4 columns, and with a space chase, we'll use range increments of 50 inches between each card. That's perfect for lasers and star torpedoes. On the run is a smuggler and his freighter. The freighter and the other vehicles used in this video have been added using the vehicle guide for the Savage Worlds Adventure Edition. Now, the vehicle guide isn't a blueprint for building vehicles from scratch. It's your personal garage of adaptations. They've taken all sorts of rides, from historical classics to fictional marvels, and stripped them down to their core statistics. This guide is your key to unleashing these vehicles into your own world. So, whether you're pulling inspiration from history books or your favorite movies, the vehicle guide is here to help you seamlessly integrate them into your universe. If you are looking for a system to custom build vehicles using point values, you should really check out the Science Fiction Companion. It contains rules for players and game masters to make every kind of vehicle you can imagine, from giant robots to spaceships and even custom power armor. Per the vehicle guide, as ships get larger, they have a higher wound limit and their toughness increases. Ship operations and weapons will be assigned to various characters, as shown here. We'll keep it simple for the example, but with additional characters, you could also have some working with sensor readings and whatever else is decided that can help in support roles. Because the crew on each ship are considered groups, initiative is a quick draw, with the patrol ship getting a 6 of diamonds and the smuggler ship a jack of hearts. The smuggler, determined to evade capture, elects to change position as a free action. In case they open fire, he plans to evade as his action and throw off the patrol ship's targeting systems. He rolls a 2, and while they aren't moving forward yet, the -4 for evading is now even more important. The crew of his ship hold their actions for now. The smuggler's defiance has pushed the patrol ship captain to take decisive action. Confident in his ship's defenses and emboldened by the smuggler's lack of retaliation so far, the captain takes change position as the action and then orders the weapons officer to target the ship and fire the main turret, along with the engineer to power up the forward fixed lasers. The captain selects piloting and adds +2 as an action. He rolls a 7 total and the ship moves 1 action card. The weapons officer fires the laser turret. There is no unstable platform modifier in space, but there is the -4 from the evading tactic, so she misses. The engineer goes next and also misses. The smuggling crew decides not to use their held action. With the evade maneuver, it's going to be very hard for them to shoot, and if they do shoot, even if they miss, they're going to anger the patrol ship even further. So next round, after action cards are drawn, the patrol ship can go first with the Jack of Spades, but the captain decides all crew will hold their actions. The smuggler ship is still in sights of both their guns, but the previous evade action, still in force, negates their power. It's the smuggler's turn, but with a 3 of clubs, that's a complication. The smuggler captain must make a maneuvering roll as a free action to start their turn at -2, since their chase card is diamonds, or be bumped. He rolls a 3, and the final result is a 1, not a critical though. The freighter is bumped, and it's up to the patrol ship captain to move it, and he decides to move the ship backwards a card. Now, the rules do say explicitly that the bumped vehicle can be moved to any chase card, except diagonally, but common sense must also prevail. The GM decides the freighter can be moved to any card, but backwards. The ship may be slightly out of control, but it still has momentum. The player disagrees, as might some watchers of this video, but this is still the GM's table, even if it is virtual. With some grumbling, the captain leaves the ship right where it is. Any other move actually puts the freighter further out of reach. The smuggler captain doesn't want to wait around to see what's going to happen next. He is all in on changing position and rolls. The dice explode for a 10. He can move 2 chase cards and effectively puts the patrol ship's forward-linked lasers on ice. Unfortunately, his engineer is spooked by near misses from the patrol ship. He gets trigger happy and fires the dual-linked medium laser turret and misses. The patrol ship has held all of their actions, and the captain does not like getting fired on. He uses change position as a free action because he wants to get the forward weapons back online. He rolls and gets a raise. That's 2 action cards he can move. All weapons are now able to fire on the full length of the freighter. The star torpedoes are more powerful than needed right now, so he orders his weapons officer to fire the laser turret one more time. She triggers the linked medium laser turret and hits with a raise, doing enough damage to cause 1 wound. However, shaken isn't applied as you would in normal combat. Vehicles can't be shaken. Let's take a close-up look on the damage done by the attack. The engineer fires with the fixed forward lasers and hits with a 5, but unfortunately, the lasers just glance off the freighter's hull. It's the next turn, so action cards are drawn again for initiative. The patrol ship goes first, but they've drawn the ace of clubs. The patrol ship captain makes a maneuvering roll, but unfortunately fails. The smuggler captain decides to move the patrol ship up 1 card. It turns out one of the near misses from the smuggler ship torched a guidance fin. The ship's engineer has caught the problem and has made sure it won't happen again. Enough is enough. The captain is done with patience. His piloting roll explodes, and although he can move 2 squares, all he really wants to do is line the bow of the ship up with the freighter. He'd hoped to avoid anything extreme, but he can no longer risk his ship and crew. He does fire the forward-linked star torps to devastating effect. The freighter takes 8 wounds and is wrecked. Those inside are placed under arrest, and the ship is towed to the nearest orbital platform. When a vehicle's wounds are reduced to 0, the vehicle is completely wrecked. A land vehicle can't move, but its weapons may still be fired if they aren't powered by the vehicle's propulsion system. Watercraft sink small vessels in a few rounds, while larger ships can go under anywhere from an hour to several hours. Aircraft fall completely out of the sky, while starships are left adrift. Anyone inside the vehicle takes damage based on what caused the wreck. In a collision on the out-of-control table, everyone takes a d6 of damage for each wound suffered in the collision. If the vehicle has airbags and safety harnesses, that damage is halved, rounded down. If the vehicle is wrecked from wounds caused by enemy attacks, occupants in a land vehicle, speedboat, starship, or similar vehicles take 3d6 damage, or 5d6 if the GM feels the vehicle was traveling at a high enough speed or some other precarious circumstance is involved. Now, those on large boats, though, don't take wounds, but must contend with swimming rolls and then having to survive afterward. Occupants of an aircraft make an athletics roll if they have parachutes to land safely. Failure means they take bumps and bruises from a hard landing, while a critical failure on athletics or those without parachutes sadly plummet to their death, unless the GM feels they have some chance somehow of surviving. I hope you still have a few bennies handy. Now, if you yearn for the thrill of broadside cannons, the salty spray of a sea battle, and the satisfaction of sinking your opponent faster than a first mate with a bad case of scurvy, then this be the guide for ye. We'll look at a naval chase between two grand sailing ships on the open sea. We're talking epic sea chases, the kind that span days and test the mettle of even the saltiest sailor. These high seas pursuits could take days depending on weather and distance. The recommendation is that each round represents roughly 4 hours, though with unfavorable winds it could be even longer. As for measuring that distance, each range increment is roughly a mile. Now, obviously, this map is not quite to scale. Here we have a pirate galleon in pursuit of a British man of war. Though the distances are too far for an attack, we'll still draw for initiative as the ships try to either outrun or outmaneuver each other. It's basically boating skill versus boating skill to change position, aided by edges and crew support. While boating skill alone can cover this off, if I were running the campaign, I'd possibly add homebrew skills or edges around navigation, or mastery over a ship's rigging and sails. These could easily aid in support of the captain's boating skill to outpace your opponent each turn. The chase can go back and forth, but once both ships land on the same chase card, you can go to another scale, close enough for the ships to directly engage each other in combat with a range increment of 25 inches between cards. Now, the two ships can continue with their movement maneuvers, but also change their facing to be able to fire their cannons. Sailing ships have their cannons largely mounted to the left and right, and the results of a broadsides, a firing of all the guns from one side of a warship, can be devastating to a ship's hull, sails, rigging, and crew. To attack, the character will make a maneuvering roll as an action. Failure means he can't line up a shot that turn. Success lets you fire up to half your cannons on one side of the target. With a raise, you can unleash everything you've got on that one target. Consider each group of 4 cannons linked, rolling attacks and damage for each set individually. Let's see what that looks like. I've arranged the cannons into groups so I know exactly how many attacks I have and what damage can be done. Attacks are handled as usual with the normal penalties and edges having an impact, such as unstable platform, or edges like steady hands. Although in a marine campaign, I'd give it an alternative name like sea legs. While you might want to sink the other ship, there's a lot more bounty to be made capturing a ship, taking its cargo, and possibly even ransoming the crew. To make that happen, a character can take boarding as their action. When both ships are on the same chase card, the crew can use grappling hooks and planks to pull close and board. Alternatively, the defenders can work to repel boarders. The two ships make opposing maneuvering rolls, and if the attacker wins, the two ships are joined. If some of the defending ship's crew has been assigned to repelling boarders, their actions are considered on hold unless the attacker won the boarding roll with a raise. If the ships are locked together by grappling hooks, tractor beams, or other restraints, the defending ship's only action is to attempt change position at a -4 penalty. If successful, they break free, though some enemy boarders might still be on deck. And with the raise, they can also move one chase card in either direction. If the defending captain can't break free, when a daring boarding action commences, the chase takes a back seat. The thrill of hand-to-hand combat explodes as the pirates clash with the defending British officers and crew. This fierce struggle takes center stage until its dramatic conclusion. Only then will the victor be able to determine the fate of the chase, whether it's a capture of the ship and crew or a desperate escape with a renewed pursuit. This is also a great time to talk about repairs, when after a battle, characters can get their vehicles back in working order. Repairs take 2 hours per wound and require a successful repair roll, which, if you fail, means completely starting over. The most basic tools and supplies are needed for field repairs, but also hinder the repair roll by -2. A proper workspace and resources negate any penalty, while top-notch facilities grant a +2 bonus. Each success and raise on the repair roll heals a wound on the vehicle, while exceptional rolls with an extra raise can even halve the repair time. For the final scenario, let's head to the arid, desolate wastelands, stretching endlessly beneath the bleached sun of a post-apocalyptic world. A lone car's engine roars, kicking up plumes of brown dust across the cracked asphalt, while a monstrous truck patched with scrap spews black smoke and growls like a hungry beast. Manic Mel was minding his own business and out for a relaxing drive when a group of raiders decided to ruin his day. Mel has other plans. Combat kicks off with initiative. Though the raiders are a group, they are 3 individual vehicles and will act accordingly. The dirt bike goes first with the Queen of Diamonds. They make their change position roll and move ahead 1 chase card, pulling up alongside Mel's car. The raider, riding on the back, fires his Smith & Wesson and shatters the car's passenger window, but misses Mel. That makes Manic Mel mad to the max. But as much as he'd like to shoot back, he needs to get in control here. Put some distance with the pack of cars and try to separate them. He takes change position as a free action and evade as his action. With a success, he roars ahead 1 chase card. The truck acts next and succeeds a maneuvering roll. The raider in the back is operating a 50 cal machine gun and strafes the supercharged car. But with Manic Mel's evading, all shots miss. Finally, the old police bike changes position for 1 chase card, and the passenger in the sidecar fires his old rifle, but misses. Initiative action cards are drawn, and Manic Mel is happy to see the ace of spades. It's time to change the odds. He slams on his brakes and moves his car back. In a linear chase, a character can move back 1 or 2 chase cards without a maneuvering roll, but that's it for change position as an action or a free action further. He targets the police bike with his forward fixed linked medium machine guns, and all the bullets hit. That's a total of 6 wounds. Now, that's double what the police bike has, so it's completely wrecked. But we still have more rolls to make so we can see what effect the bike has on the rest of the battle map. With a wound, the driver must make a roll on the out of control table from the SWADE core rules, and a 4 results in a minor collision. The vehicle takes a wound and rolls on the critical hits table. Now, there's no more wounds the bike can take, but the critical hit roll of 10 means the bullet damage also gets applied to the crew. Being a rider means there's no additional coverage from the motorbike. The 10 damage, after subtracting toughness, tears through the raider. And as an extra, even 1 wound means he's dead. An additional critical hit roll of 8 is made for the wounds that occurred with a raise. That simply means impact on the bike chassis for no additional effect. So let's recap. The bike has taken enough wounds to be wrecked and a few bullets ripped through the raider. He's dead and there's no one driving the bike. The GM decides the bike is completely out of control and chooses for it to head to the left, right in the path of the truck that drew a 5 of clubs. Now, that will be a complication for sure. Now, we can skip the police bike's action. The raider in the sidecar does have an action held, but it's being used currently to scream at the top of his lungs. The dirt bike goes next on a jack of hearts. The change position roll is failed. After all, he almost went off the road distracted by the police bike. But his rider still manages to fire off a wild shot, but that misses as well. With the complication, the truck fails its maneuvering roll and is bumped. Manic Mel decides to move them forward 1 action card, forcing them over the police bike, resulting in a massive explosion and its utter destruction. For their actual move, the truck really isn't sure what to do. The machine gun can't be used since it fires forward in a 45-degree arc. The GM decides that the driver is sufficiently distracted from all of this. His turn can be skipped. The GM wants to keep the momentum going here. Manic Mel doesn't disappoint and pulls the Black Joker for initiative. As a wild card, he gets a Benny and +2 for all his rolls this turn, an advantage he intends to put to good use. He floors it, rolling an incredible 19 for change position as a free action. He sends the pursuit special hurtling forward into a collision course with the dirt bike, taking ram as an action. Ram starts off by requiring opposing maneuvering rolls for the operators involved, which Mel wins. So, what next? When 2 vehicles ram into each other, then both vehicles involved damage each other, as follows. The first criteria is size. The base damage caused for each vehicle is based on its scale. Small for a D6, normal for 2D6, and so on up to 5D6 for gargantuan-sized vehicles. If you got a raise on your winning maneuvering roll, that's an added D6. The vehicle with the highest toughness gets an extra D6 and 2D6 if their toughness is twice as high. And finally, speed kills. You add plus D6 to both sides if the attacker's speed is between 60 and 120 miles per hour, and a plus 2d6 if it's over 120. So let's look at what that means here. The car is large for 3d6. There's no raise, a d6 for toughness and 2d6 for speed. So that's a total of 6d6. Whereas the bike in return will do 2d6 for size and 2d6 for speed. That's a total of 4d6. The dice are rolled and the dirt bike takes 28 damage. That exceeds the toughness with multiple wounds. The bike is completely wrecked and run over. Whereas the pursuit special only takes 12 damage, which equals the vehicle's toughness, so no damage at all. Manic Mel continues on with his move to the next chase cart, pulls alongside the truck and looks over and smiles at the driver. The truck driver's heart pounds in his chest. It's his turn next, and he's got some choices to make. He's just witnessed his colleagues become mere crumpled metal, and he's thrown into a stark choice. His quarry, a grinning maniac, is closing in fast. And it looks like he's aiming a sawed-off shotgun his way, too. And with that, I think we've covered most everything for chases, as well as the special rules for different vehicles and different settings. And it couldn't have been done without the incredible artwork created by Greg Bruni. I've featured Greg's work before in one of my creator spotlights, but it's only fair I do so again. I use Greg Bruni creations for the tokens in all my games, and Greg makes the very best. Greg makes characters for fantasy, post-apocalyptic, historical, the wild and weird west, pulp 1920s and 30s, science fiction, superheroes, and more. And talk about prolific. Greg has made over 170 sets of figures. The definition is amazing. You can zoom right in on each token without losing any of the incredible details with each figure. So please, check out Greg's work. His link is in the video description below. Well, between part 1 and this video, that finishes up our look at the chase rules for Savage Worlds Adventure Edition. I hope you liked the video and that you'll find it helpful in your game. To make sure you don't miss the next video or future videos, please subscribe and hit the bell in the top right corner. Thanks again so much for watching.